What's going on, guys? It's the Skylander dude, and a lot of people have been asking me to make a Skylanders custom collection video. I made one years and years ago, but that video has since been outdated. I've made a bunch more customs since then, so that's what this video is going to be, an updated Skylanders custom showcase video. I'm going to go through my whole collection of custom Skylanders I've made. I'm going to try to go from oldest to newest, but when there's collections like the Lost Islands figures, I'll keep all those together. So let's start with my very first custom Skylander I ever made, this sort of half robot Trigger Happy. I want to guess in like 2013, this Trigger Happy figure was gifted to me by a friend I went to school with because his dog attacked it. It was totally chewed apart. So this was my first custom attempt at repairing that figure. I used tinfoil to make these sort of metal pieces and also a Sharpie instead of paint. I also reposed the arms a bit, but it is a interesting first custom, but you got to start somewhere. Next up was another figure that was gifted to me after a dog attacked it. This is a red drill sergeant without any of his drills, and his wheels actually turn. I put a paper clip through the bottom of the figure just so they could have spinning wheels. There is no chip in the bottom of drill sergeant like I wanted there to be. You can see I started to cut a hole in the bottom, but then I realized the chip was too big. So this is it. This is the custom figure. Then we have my first painted custom, which is this lizard green cinder. This was directly inspired by a custom that Remix Skylanders made. He made a bit of a darker green lizard cinder. So for my first painted custom, I wanted to try and tackle that exact look. I then took Cinder's wings that I cut off from the lizard cinder custom to add to this Riptide to create this sort of mashup darker Riptide custom. For being one of my first customs, I actually do like how this turned out, and I think the color scheme is actually pretty cool. Next, I have this accidental power blue variant of Grim Creeper. This Grim Creeper's scythe was actually damaged, so I decided to take it all off and turn him into a brawler. And the color scheme I went for was kind of accidentally a power blue variant. I didn't mean to make this a power blue variant, but what else is going to happen when you use white and dark blue? Next is this Super Shot Stealth Elf wielding two of her blade guns. The concept of this figure is pretty cool, but this color scheme is atrocious. It is hard on the eyes. I'm not sure why I went with these super bright contrasting colors. This next custom is meant to be a fully upgraded jetvac with his soul gem and all. Pretty fun figure, and his visor there is actually a Sprite bottle that I cut up to use. This next figure is pretty crazy. It is a Zulu riding on top of a Lightcore Drobot. I got this Lightcore Drobot from GameStop when they used to have used figures and didn't realize the tail was broken, so I turned it into a custom. I then have this Eruptor custom that I took the arms from a Sharkshooter Terrafin and then just repainted the whole figure. I don't have a name for every single custom, but I believe I named this one Apple Trigger Happy, which is pretty fitting with the color scheme. This is obviously a Shroom Boom mixed with a Trigger Happy, but inside the base I actually did take out the bottom and put in the Trigger Happy chip. I ended up using those arms from that Trigger Happy in this Torch custom. I don't really know what I was going with the color scheme here, but it is certainly interesting. This next figure is a mix of Swarm and Freeze Blade, which on paper looks pretty cool, but I botched the color scheme once again. This Spitfire turned out pretty cool in orange, and also I like the Hex Skull with the blue flame coming off of the back that I took from Spitfire's wings there. This T-Rex custom was a bit of a fail. I tried to incorporate clay bits like these moss coverings or just to cover up the hole from his head, and then put this whole figure in the oven to bake the clay and the figure. Obviously that did not work. His whole base started to melt and bubble up, so if you're doing clay customs, do not put the base in the oven. I learned the hard way not to do that. I'll bring in these next two together because they are obviously a pair, but this is a Astroblast and Sunrunner that are hydro dipped. If you don't remember hydro dipping, it was this trend that was kind of popular years and years ago. Basically, you would take a bucket of water, spray paint the water with different colors, and then dip, in this case, Skylander figures in the water. So when they come out, they had this sort of marbleized look to the paint. The figures have a pretty interesting look to them. I'm not sure if it was the best end result though. I really like this next custom here. This is a Dr. Neocortex that I added some pieces to better match his character in the game. So he's got his staff, and also Uka Uka, he's holding the mask there, which I think actually turned out pretty well. Unfortunately though, this figure is a little top heavy. I used to do this series on my channel called Custom Collab, where me and another SkyTuber would make a custom together based off a theme and using the same character. So this theme, I believe, was just video games with the Big Bang Trigger Happy. And of course, I made Mario riding a Bullet Bill. The Trigger Happy Mario is unfortunately pretty cursed, but the Bullet Bill came out pretty cool, I think. But how could you mess up the Bullet Bill, honestly? And the second custom collab figure I have is this sort of washed up Burn Cycle. It incorporates these spinning wheels from Hot Streak. These water jets are from Deep Dive Gilgrunt, and actually the umbrella is made up from two fans on Star Strike. But yeah, it's kind of got the theme of just a wave crashing over the beach. It's taken away a beach chair, a beach ball, and an umbrella. Kind of a lot going on with this figure. Then we have my Arbo clay custom figure. I always wanted an Arbo figure ever since we saw that sandstone print prototype of Arbo. So I made it myself out of clay. And now we'll go into my collection of Alter Ego Lost Islands customs, starting with Skeletal Cinder. I'll go through these based on the oldest Lost Islands custom that I made up until the newest. So Skeletal Cinder here was the first one I made. You can kind of tell with the paint job that it is a little rough, but at least from a distance, it does its job. And the next one I made was Autumn Stump Smash, a fairly simple custom here. And I wish I actually made the leaves out of clay. It was kind of lazy that I just took an existing like decoration piece from a village and slapped it on, but whatever. Then I made the Frosted Food Fight custom, which is a crazy figure to work on for being my third Lost Islands custom. A lot of small clay pieces going in on this figure, and maybe not the best sculpting work, but just shows its age. Next one is this Grill Master Chop Chop. Really cool figure here. Love the grill cover, love the hot dog on the fork there. It is pretty cool to see my progression through these Lost Islands customs on how I got better and better at making custom figures in general. Next up is Hallows Eve Hex. I've always loved this dangling cauldron piece on this figure. But these green stripes you see on the broom and around her waist are actually rubber bands, and I'm really surprised they haven't just like disintegrated over these years. I'm surprised they have held up. But yeah, that's the Hallows Eve Hex. Next Alter Ego I made was the Buttered Popthorn. Really fun and creative figure. Love the 3D glasses, though I kind of messed up on the blue side there, but we don't talk about that. Still a fun figure. Next up is Fortune Funnybone. I'm not sure what my fixation on adding little pieces to the base was around this time, but I did that for a lot of Lost Islands customs. Next up, we have Mystic Starstrike, a really fun alter ego. The cards are super faded. I'm not sure why I used a coloring pencil to try to make those, but I do like how this floating orb came out. I tried to make the illusion that it is floating above her hand by just attaching it to just the tip of her thumb, and I do think it works decently well. The shadow casting over her hand kind of helps that illusion, but a neat figure nonetheless. Then we have Knockout Jawbreaker. A lot going on with this alter ego. He's got his headgear, the boxing gloves, and of course his winning tech element belt. I'm not sure when painting this figure why I used a gray and then a clear coat over top of it. I must have thought that would look like silver. It does not. It is clearly gray. I wish I used silver, but you live and you learn. That's Knockout Jawbreaker. Here we have Holiday Washbuckler. These do still swap. All my swapper customs do still swap, which is fun. And I do actually have videos on all the Lost Islands customs I've done so far. But this one specifically actually lined up with Christmas one year to sort of have a holiday special. Then right after that figure, I made New Year's Countdown. Also lined that up with the new year. This alter ego came out on the app in 2014, so obviously I left that year on the hat. And I do think the monocle there is super fun. Next Lost Islands figure I made was Sunday Slobbertooth, another super fun character. He's got the ice cream splattered over his head and of course on his shell there. And there's just sprinkles everywhere. Those are super thin, super easy to just break if I press my thumb up against that, but some of these you do have to be careful with. Next I made Builda Gorilla Drilla, a super fun name and a pretty neat character as well. I actually used fabric on his vest for this figure, which is interesting. I was definitely avoiding making his vest out of clay by trying to wrap it in fabric, and not the first or last time I would use that technique. In fact, you'll see it again right here with Gourmet Gusto. His whole chef's coat is just fabric that I painted over white. It does work. It is convincing. It looks like a jacket, but I wish I challenged myself to actually make that out of clay. And of course, he's got that giant loaf of bread there, which is funny. The next one I made is Surfer Slam Bam, a super cool figure. Love the way this one turned out. His surfboard is super cool. I made that out of wood and then painted it. Again, using more fabric for his shorts, but still a cool figure. Next up is Snowler Brawl. I love all the little carrot nose pieces made for all the snowman faces. Next up is Firework Zook. So many little rocket pieces I made for his bazooka, his hands, and also coming out of his head. Then the most recent two that I made are Lucky Boomer. Love the way his hat turned out. That tech element is super killer. And then Buddy Wrecking Ball. Both Buddy Wrecking Ball and Lucky Boomer were featured in the same video if you haven't seen it already. Now I'll go into my Ring of Heroes Awakened Form custom figures. I don't have a lot of them. I do want to go back and make more eventually, but here we have the Awakened Eruptor figure. When I made this, the game wasn't even out yet. I was just going off images that were posted to promote the Ring of Heroes game, and it is actually pretty close to the actual character. Next one I made was Awakened Sharpshooter Terrafin. There's a lot of clay pieces that I just kind of overlaid on top of the figure, and I almost definitely just guessed what his back would look like because, again, made this before the game came out. But by the time I made this next one, the game was almost definitely out. This is Awakened Trigger Happy. Really love this figure, this character in general. Once again, using some fabric on the figure, but I do also love how his little cowboy hat came out. That is super cool. The Awakened forms were always super cool. I do want to get back into making some of those. The last Awakened form I made was Awakened Washbuckler. Super crazy hat going on here that is all made from clay. Lots and lots of detail on this figure that I think came out looking pretty cool. These next customs I'll show as a pair. They are two customs inspired by Fall Guys. I tried to make those little bean Fall Guy characters wearing a Skylander based on the game's costume. So this was a alligator costume that I made with Dino Ring. And then this was a chicken costume that I made using Nightlight. The base of these figures were actually Shroom Boom. I remember those eyes being such a pain to get perfectly right with that Fall Guy style. Then I have this Donkey Kong Prism Break custom. Donkey Kong is my favorite Nintendo character. I loved Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii. And when the Skylanders Color Alive coloring books actually came out, I actually colored a Prism Break page to look like Donkey Kong. And then a few years later, I actually turned it into a physical painted custom. Now I actually want to show off some customs that I actually didn't make that are in my collection. These were actually from other people in the community. First is this gold Pop Fizz custom that actually won from Proto Master Evan years and years ago when he did a stream to make awareness for childhood cancer. So that's why it is completely gold, and it says on his hand, "Go gold for the kids." Then these next two are from Remix Skylanders. The first one are two hexes mixing in a fiery forge cauldron on top of what I think is either a Night Shift or a Rattleshake base. Really cool combination of figures there for one custom. And then the second one is this mix of Gremlins and Pop Fizz. You have one half being the Fizzy Frenzy Pop Fizz as a Gremlin, then the other half a Lightcore Pop Fizz as Gizmo. Super, super cool figure. Then these next three are from Rainstorm Riddles. First, we have this repainted Water Tiki Trap. Then this blue and bronze Imaginite chest, which actually opens up with a hinge and closes with magnets. Super cool. And then she made this mid-transformation Pop Fizz. Super duper cool. Love the potion dripping into his mouth and also his arm starting the transformation into beast mode. Awesome, awesome figure here. So these are all the customs that I made for other creators or just other friends in the community. I definitely don't remember every single custom that I've made or given away to someone, but these are the ones that I just have pictures of or just happen to remember making. First up is this prototype or concept version of Chopper that I gave to Portal Master Evan. Chopper is his favorite Skylander, and this was a concept that he wanted to see in real life, so I made the custom for him. I believe this was the concept of Chopper when he was coming back as a core in Trap Team, not his giant concept. But yeah, this one is directly based off Iwei's concept art and just made in a physical form. This next one I made for Crash the Skylands. It is a dark wildfire with a dark wrecking ball riding on its back. I believe it was his idea to have the wildfire in his running pose with a Skylander riding on top of it. And I think it's funny just to have this dark, menacing lion character with a small, bubbly, cute wrecking ball riding on top of him. This is definitely an older custom. Both having the characters breathe fire might have been a little much, but it's a pretty funny custom. This next figure was made for Striker Hero Camo, and it is Sal, Wolfgang's brother from the Golden Arcade level. Obviously, this started with a Wolfgang figure, and then he used that weird fabric technique to recreate his clothes. He's got a few other small pieces of clay for his jewelry and such, and also his hair, I believe, is from Crash Bandicoot. But still, I do like the end result of this custom. This next one, I believe, was named Captain Camo, obviously for SCL Matt. I don't believe he knew this figure was coming. I think it was almost entirely a surprise that I just threw in to a package for him. So of course, it includes Camo, Matt's favorite Skylander, and also a cheese head, which is iconic to SCL Matt. There's so much going on in this one singular figure that I remember was pretty top heavy with the camo hanging off the ship. So I think there's actually a washer underneath the pirate's hat just to weigh it down and even out the weight of that figure. This next one is a Bowser Warnado that I made for Skylanders Eon. Warnado is one of, if not his favorite Skylander, and I believe the Bowser idea came from me because I knew he was interested in Nintendo as well. It's a pretty perfect matchup. Once I matched the color scheme, there are a lot of similarities between Bowser and Warnado. I did replace a few pieces with clay though, and I believe the hair on the top of Warnado's head is from Stink Bomb or Crash Bandicoot. I don't really remember, but I don't think I sculpted that hair. This next custom was for my friend Kenny, and it is a Killjoy Sprocket from Valorant. I didn't know much about Valorant when making this custom, so I just looked at a lot of different images of the Killjoy character to create this sort of mashup. There are a lot of small and thin pieces of clay that I made to capture as much detail as possible in this figure, but I probably wouldn't do that again just because I feel bad for the person receiving it. They can't really use it in game or play with it as often if there's so many fragile pieces on the custom. I guess it just depends on who it's going to, but that's something to keep in mind in the future. This figure was for Ignite the Fire. It is a smash hit with a literal wrecking ball. This was all his idea. I think I may have come up with the color palette, but still a really funny concept for a custom. A lot of people commented about this custom when I showed it off years ago, but this is the Traptanium Chaos from the Trap Team boss fight. This was for my friend Aaron, who pretty much came up with the entire idea of this custom. I know we bounced a lot of ideas back and forth with each other, but we really wanted this figure to both work as Chaos and Imaginators, as well as taking it off the base and using the trap piece as a trapped Chaos and Trap Team. And we achieved that. This custom is both functional in Trap Team and Imaginators. The Imaginators base obviously still has the Chaos chip, and then it is supported with this sort of like fog Traptanium spiral just to hold that trap piece in, but you can always take that out and use him as a trap in the Trap Team portal. The blue Traptanium piece is from an air trap, but I just swapped out the chips with the Chaos trap so it is functional as Chaos. This is a pretty wide figure with his two swords and his wings, but I do think it came out exactly like the version in the game. This last custom that I have photos of was for Rainstorm Riddles, and it is a Roxanne Wolf Freeze Blade. I think if I remember correctly, Freeze Blade was one of her favorites, or was just the character that she recommended I customize for her, and the Roxanne Wolf just came from her interest in Five Nights at Freddy's. I really like the keytar on this custom. That one turned out really cool, but it's also very creepy looking, which kind of fits with the Five Nights at Freddy's theme. I don't know, but just seeing Freeze Blade with a snout is kind of unsettling. But now we'll go back into some of my other customs in my collection. This next series of customs was for my Instagram series Stealth Elf on a Shelf, where each day in the month of December I would post a picture of Stealth Elf hiding somewhere. First, in 2020, it was voted upon to make the custom Stealth Elf quarantine themed, obviously. So of course, repainted the mask, got a spray bottle and a rag there, and also a little 6 feet social distancing sticker on the bottom. Then following that, in 2021, Chilled Stealth Elf won the vote. So that's this figure here. I love the little ice pieces that I used from the Empire of Ice to make it look more frozen. Super fun idea for a custom. Then 2022, the vote was for a Sugar Plum Stealth Elf. Pretty cool candy theme across this figure with the candy cane blades. Then 2023 had the last custom Stealth Elf figure for Stealth Elf on the Shelf. We have Gingerbread Super Shot Stealth Elf. Even more of a candy theme on this figure. You must be a Cleveland Brown Skylander if you think that's what's going to be the next custom. Literally you. I definitely didn't account for how much space this custom was going to take up on the table, so enjoy some B-roll footage of the character. But yeah, this is the custom Cleveland Brown Skylander I made, obviously after the meme. The Cleveland Brown figure that I used is the same figure that had the product photo that was edited onto the bouncer base in the meme. So obviously it is much bigger than I thought it was going to be. That is a giant base. That's the bouncer base right there. But I wanted to use the original sources of the meme. And believe it or not, this Cleveland Brown figure is actually pretty rare. It is pretty expensive to come across this specific Family Guy figure. Fortunately, I got a really good deal on it, so I didn't have to pay a lot for this stupid meme custom. But last time I checked, it was going for like $40 for just that figure. I guess that just makes the Cleveland Brown Skylander even more collectible. Trying to ignore the giant Cleveland Brown in the back there. Next up, we have the Starter Pack Monster Custom. This one just started off as an idea from one of you guys for my creating horrible custom Skylanders video. It then got the most votes to be turned into a physical custom figure. If you can't see it, this has pieces from one of each character from each starter pack. So we have Kingpin's base, Spitfire's fire, Snapshot's body, Washbuckler's arm, T-Rex's arm, and then Spyro's head. It is truly something else. Next is another custom pair. We have Dune Break and Prism Bug. This was a custom pair that the Skylander Boy and Girl made years ago that I wanted to recreate myself. And if you haven't seen the video, they just turned these two characters into swappers. So I did the same. These have magnets inside the halves of them. Unfortunately, they are very weak magnets. You can see how loose the halves hold together, but it still works for the bit. You can't beat the Supreme. The beam is the beetle. And then we have my final set of custom Skylanders, my custom unreleased characters. First is Happy Birthday Ben Starcast. Obviously made this custom before I would know I get a chance to have the Happy Birthday Ben Starcast figure in my collection, but even for a simple paint job, this one came out looking great. Then of course, we have Heartbreaker Buckshot. I'll always love that translucent red arrow. It looks as close to the official figure as we can get. I do wish I used the more pearlescent paint for his horns and bow though. Next, I made Vicarious Visions Windup. I think I did a good job of the sculpt on the V on top of his head, but unfortunately lost a lot of detail for the V's on his hands. Next unreleased custom I made was Tarklops. Love the way he turned out. To me, he looks exactly like the Tarklops character. Next, I made Template. He is completely made out of clay, and I actually used Blast Zone's swapping magnets and incorporated them in the top and bottom half, so that's why it is a little bit wider around his waist. Looking at it now, his face is a little cursed, but we look past that. Still a cool figure. I'm glad I actually made it as a functional swapper. And then the final custom Skylander in my collection, the last one I have to show off for unreleased characters, is the Series 4 Cinder custom. This custom turned out great. I'm so glad I was able to capture that look of Series 4 Cinder with just the blurred image that we have. But yeah, a great custom to end the video off on. I hope you enjoyed looking at my entire updated custom Skylander collection, and let me know in the comments what custom you want me to make next. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Peace.